Hi everybody, I'm James, and in this video I will be going over my testimony. So the first thing I want to talk about is where I kind of started with my walk of faith, and that would be my father kind of explaining who God was to me at a young age. When I was young, I didn't really devote much thought to God. I never prayed, and it wasn't until I moved to Florida due to a domestic dispute between my former stepfather and my mother. We fled to Florida, and we started going to a church. My mother met an outreach person in a laundromat, and we started going to church, and that church was kind of what introduced me to the actual relationship that you can gain with God. This was kind of what brought me into the faith, like the actual faith, past lukewarmity, and it showed me the goodness of God and how graceful he is to sacrifice himself, not for his own gain, but for our gain. And I didn't think too much of my relationship with God up until around 8th grade, when I was struggling with hateful thoughts towards myself, other people, and it really just brought me into being a person that I did not want to be. And I seeked out help to some people, and they told me what I should be doing. I should be developing my faith, my intimacy with Christ, and reading my Bible more. And I started doing this in 8th grade. Now that was all good and great, but I wasn't really living the lifestyle that I should have been. I was swearing all the time, gossiping, lusting. I was listening to music that probably was not good for my mental health later on. And it was like I had two identities battling each other. You know, I love God. I want to be Christ-like, but I love attention. I want to be popular. I want to make people laugh. And this did nothing for me. The only thing it did was bring me anxiety, depression, sadness. And instead of caring about how God felt about me, all I did was care about how the girl I like felt about me, my best friends, the people I want to, improve my reputation with in school. And it really made me feel terrible. Like I started hating myself to the point where I just didn't want to live anymore. I didn't care how God felt about me. I didn't care how I felt about myself, because the people around me obviously don't like me, so I have to hate myself too, right? That's kind of what went through my mind. I felt alone, senseless. I felt like my life didn't have any rational meaning behind it, that I was just living day by day to suffer, to feel pain, to fall into things that I shouldn't be doing, saying things I shouldn't be doing, being a person I shouldn't be. And it was this that led me to having this huge hole in my heart. This gigantic hole in my heart that I felt like I would never be able to fill. And during this time, I was smoking weed. I was trying to get the attention of girls. I was trying to gossip to get people to think I am somehow cooler than other people. I started doing all these stupid things, and it just got worse and worse and worse until one day I held a gun up to my head. And obviously I didn't do anything because I'm still here, but that's to emphasize how far I was willing to go to fill this hole that I felt like was going to eat me away if I didn't do anything about it. And it was. If I didn't do anything about it, I probably wouldn't be here right now. But the thing I did about it wasn't lusting, getting money, getting more friends, getting more people to like me. In fact, I sacrificed a lot of friends. I sacrificed relationships. I sacrificed my reputation with a lot of people. But in turn, I started getting closer to God and really developing my relationship with Him. And that was what filled that hole. It wasn't the temporary solutions that filled it. And it definitely wasn't sitting in my bed moping around listening to sad music all the time that fixed it. It was turning to God, because this entire time I had my back turned to Him, saying, God, please catch me if I fall. And sure, He caught me at times, but I learned my lesson, because I turned around, and instead of waiting for me to fall into His arms, I jumped into His arms, willingly, because I was fighting all of these depressive thoughts, all of these self-hatred thoughts, all these attention-seeking thoughts, wanting to be accepted, when I was already accepted by the person who created me. But I didn't care at the time, but I moved past that, and now that I know that my worth doesn't come from the people around me, or even how I feel about myself, but how God loves me and cares about me as an individual created in His image, and that gave me peace and justification. He justified my sins so that I will have eternal life after I die. So not only do I have the peace I have now, but I have peace to come after this life that will never, ever go away or falter, because His grace has no bounds. It can go anywhere with anyone for however long. And I'm just so thankful that God pulled me out of the hole that I dug when He could have just left me there. And I would have starved in my sin. I would have drowned in my depression, and I would have died in my sin. I wouldn't be here. I would not be here. I would be in hell, because I would have taken my life. But instead of taking my life, God gave me life. And now, all I want to do is live the rest of this life developing my relationship with God and the people He's given me to love. Because I think, of course, I'm only a young man right now. I'm barely a man, but what I think truly makes a man is having enough strength not only to support your family and the people around you, but also having enough strength to realize how fragile you are and how much you have to rely on God rather than your own self. Because every time I rely on myself and what I want to do or who I want to be, I turn into this terrible person who does terrible things. I get anxiety attacks. I overthink everything. I ruin relationships I'm in. I ruin talking stages I'm in. I ruin best friendships. I ruin relationship with my mother or my father or my brother. And it just made me realize that I was relying too much upon my own strength, because I'm very weak. Every single human being is very weak in their core. I don't mean strong like this. I mean weak on the inside. We can't do anything without God. That's why I have this cross. It says on the other side, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. That's a verse I live by, because every time I try and do things on my own, it just backfires. But because I rely on God's strength rather than my own weakness, I have been moving forward. And now I know what I need to do, not only to be a successful person, but also to be a successful Christian. God has taught me so much, because yes, I love my father, my biological father, but my true father figure has always been Christ. Because He's who taught me how to be a man, how to be a Christian, how to be a human. He taught me how to love. And it's when I turn away from Him that I start hating myself, and I don't properly love others. I don't properly talk to others. I don't properly be Christian because I fall to my sin. See, when the enemy drags you away using temptation, they take you so far out. And when I'm out there, I feel like when I'm there, I don't feel like I can get back to God. But then I start praying. I start reading the Bible. I start worshiping. I start going to church. And I get closer and closer, and God pulls me back into his arms where I felt peace, harmony, tranquility. Because through sanctification of my soul, God frees me from my pain. Through salvation, I'm saved, but through sanctification, I'm made better while I'm still here on earth. And I stopped fighting my sin. I started fleeing from it. Because when you're trying to fight your sin, you're hitting something you can't even see. You're fighting something you can't even comprehend. But God can comprehend and see it. So rely on him to fight your battles. Stop trying to do it alone. You're not going to impress God. You're not going to do better. You're going to fall back into your sin. So accept the invitation from God rather than the temptation from Satan. Accept his alliance with you in your battles. You are but a soldier while Christ is a general. So stop trying to fight these battles as if you're strong enough to defeat the enemy when you aren't, unless you have God with you. It's not, I can do all things through myself. It's, I can do all things through Christ. And it's when I started realizing that I started doing better. That I started being happier. That I started loving others properly. And I say all this like it was a long time ago. I fall back into sin every day. And I repeat this cycle. Because God accepts me back. Every time I go out there to the land of sin, God has his arms open, waiting for me. I just need to accept it and jump right back into his arms like I did in 9th grade. And this story of my life isn't specific to just me. I've heard so many testimonies that sound almost exactly the same as mine. So if you're struggling with sin, temptation, depression, anxiety, know that you can come to God too. You just have to turn around, look him in the eyes, and jump into his arms. And peace will come to you. Anxiety will be gone. And I believe that with my whole heart because I know it's true. Because I lived that. God is a person even you who are watching this can rely on. Because he loves you and he created you in his image. But not only this, it's because he wants what's best for you and he's already laid out that path. But you must follow him to see it, to see the path he's laid out for you. And once you see that path, I can assure you, you will realize how good God is, how great and loving God is. Because he frees people from their pain and their chains that lock them to their sins, that bind them to their pain, that bind them to their sufferings, and he breaks those chains. And he brings peace and love to even those who you and I used to think didn't deserve it. To criminals, to liars, adulterers, because we're all sinners. So it doesn't matter how great your sin is, it matters if you turn away from it and accept God over your sinful lifestyle. And once I started doing that, and I can assure when you start doing that, if you haven't yet, you will not regret it. That was the best decision I have ever made in my life, and it is the only decision that I should have been making, but it's also the decision that prevented me from ending my life early. I love you guys. I truly do. And I wish the best for everybody watching this video. Thank you for watching the entire video, and I hope that it helps somebody out there.